Hi, I'm Tina McCorkindale of the Institute for Public Relations, and I'm joined by my two colleagues, Rebecca Rickard and Megan Dabrowski of KPMG. And we're here to talk about a new study that we're partnering on, looking at women in leadership in the public relations industry. And this topic came about based on some recent research, which found that 75% of public relations practitioners are female, but only 20% of leaders were women. So we decided to embark on a research journey to find out why that is and how we can make the industry better. So we're going to talk today about the first part of the study, which is based on a series of focus groups we did. We did 10 focus groups of men and women in the industry from mid-level to senior level, asking them questions related to skills, mentorship, organizational policies, and what we can do to improve in the profession. So we're going to talk today about the first part of the study, and then we're going to follow it up with the second part of the study, actually a quantitative project doing a survey of the industry. So I think we're going to kick it off talking about mentorship with my colleague, Megan.
Thanks, Tina. Well, we took a real focus on mentorship because we know that it's such an important part of people's careers. And we spoke with people, both men and women at the mid and senior level. And what came out of those discussions was that mentorship was really critical to the success of their career. So mostly everybody who was in a leadership role said that they had some form of mentoring throughout their career. So overall, we found that there's a real positive shift in our industry in helping mid-level women to achieve leadership roles. And a lot of the senior women reported that that shift has significantly changed from when they were coming up in the industry. And more women are seeking out helping other women to gain leadership roles in PR. So I think that's a great piece of feedback that we received. So Tina, actually, maybe you can talk a little bit about what it means today to be a leader.
Sure. So we asked people to sort of define leadership qualities for men and women. And the good news is that the respondents didn't feel like there was a big difference between women leading and men leading. It was really the qualities they possessed. So things like honesty, grit, determination, being able to listen to people, have time for people. And what we also found is that coaching and modeling were two key aspects to leadership development. Being a coach, but also modeling good behavior for future leaders. So I think now I'm going to turn it over to Rebecca to talk about work-life integration.
Okay. Well, so as Tina said, work-life integration, this is an area we can all relate to. So we had a lot of passionate feedback from our participants in this area. One of the things we heard that was really interesting was that a lot of mid-level women are grappling with the costs of getting to the next level. And many of them said that because they are weighing the sacrifices involved of getting the top job, some of them are not interested in going after it. So that was something really interesting to hear. Also, perhaps unsurprisingly, women talked a lot about the need for more flexibility. So what that looks like is time away from the job, ability to disconnect after hours, and also consistency in how corporate policies are applied. So one thing that we heard is that within the same company, oftentimes different managers apply the policies differently. So some are able to work from home and others are not. So one really interesting piece of advice that we heard from executive women was to look at work-life integration over the long view. So day-to-day equilibrium might not be possible between home life and work, but that instead of trying to reach this on a day-to-day basis, that it's something that you can strive for over the long term. And overall, one thing that both men and women we spoke with talked about a lot was that in order to make this all work, you need strong support systems. So that looks like spouses, managers, and company culture all combined.
So I think we saw some really positive feedback and some positive results, but barriers still exist for women in leadership and PR, and that's what we heard from our respondents. What they cited is that we had some of the senior level men who said there's still sexism in the C-suite. Until that's solved at a macro level, we're not going to see the change that needs to be done. Some of the other like mid-level women in their experiences, they cited that they were feeling excluded from some outings or participating, and they still sort of felt left out of what they perceived to be a boys' club in their departments or their roles. What was interesting to me is that while some men said they didn't really see any barriers to women in leadership, that it's the qualities that helps them rise to the top, some of the women disagreed. They said, no, I've seen it. I've seen where women didn't advance to the top, or the ones who do advance may not have children or something along those lines. So some of the challenges that they saw were unconscious bias or work-life integration issues, which Megan pointed out, are just sexism. But many were positive about what they're seeing to changes in the profession. So Megan, want to talk about some of the organizational policies that are impacting this issue?
Sure. So this topic came up for both men and women that we spoke with in our focus groups, and I think the first interesting point was around professional development. That some people in the industry feel like their organizations do not give them enough opportunity to develop professionally, and we're not really looking at the tactical pieces of PR, such as pitching and writing and those kind of elements, but more about building business acumen, learning how to speak the language of the CEO in order to really bring more value to those discussions and be a partner to the C-suite. Another important topic that came up for both men and women in our discussions was parental leave policies. So what we found interesting was that some people feel that mid-level women are being hampered in their careers if they're taking the opportunity to stay home with their family, whether it's for just a short period of time for maternity leave or if it's a longer term, where they feel like the people who do not leave the workforce for that time period are able to get ahead. And so that really hurts their career professionally. Others voice that work-life policies should be equal for all, that both men and women should take the same amount of time because that levels the playing field. So that would be something interesting to watch progress throughout our industry. And lastly, while many companies have good intentions on creating these policies and opportunities for people to have some kind of flexibility in their work and life, we found that there's a certain degree of quote unquote shaming that comes with taking advantage of these policies. So for example, working different hours and leaving at 4 o'clock or something instead of 6 is, people may comment that that's, you're taking a half day when really you're working the same exact hours, but it's just adjusted to fit your schedule better. So those types of attitudes need to be addressed, and that really is going to start with the top down. So I think we really are kind of just at the beginning of a lot of these discussions, and the next phase of our study will certainly dig into these. And Rebecca can talk a little bit more about what our call to actions are going to be.
Part of our project's mission is to create a roadmap of actions that women can take to better position themselves for leadership roles. And so from our discussions with our focus groups, a few key calls to action have emerged. One important opportunity that we have is to address potential pay gaps. This is a topic that I'm particularly passionate about. I think there is a lot of opportunity for increased transparency. So for individuals, learning how to negotiate is a critical step of the process, and also using your resources like mentors to talk about what can be expected and knowing your worth. And also access to sites like Glassdoor to take a look and benchmark what others in the industry are making. Legislatively, we're also making a lot of progress about what individuals can talk about in terms of compensation, and then also what companies have to do in terms of setting ranges for certain positions and not asking employees about what they make when they're coming into a new job, which can positively impact pay gaps. Another takeaway that we heard is that current leaders must really press for progress. So what that means is really taking personal accountability for setting diversity goals and then acting on them. And then companies enforcing that in their policies by looking at diverse slates of candidates as they fill new roles and look for promotions from within. So finally, both the women and men that we spoke to talked about the importance of continued open dialogue and doing so together. So getting together the men and women from our industry to talk openly about this topic to bring about more progress. So we hope this is just the beginning of some of those conversations. So Megan?
So thank you all for joining us today. We're really excited about this project, and like Rebecca mentioned, this is just the beginning. We look forward to working with the industry. There's going to be a report coming out talking about the findings that we just discussed in a little bit more detail, and we will be putting together a larger survey that's going to span the industry. So keep your eye out for that, and we hope you'll participate. And we'll be back in touch with some more results in a couple of months.